This is the Websites.ca podcast, where we help Canadian small businesses build and maintain an effective website and online presence.
This is Sean Corbett with Websites.ca Marketing.
And Ryan Desmarais with Websites.ca Sales.
And we're going to kind of catch up with everybody here in the new year. It's been a while. Instead of trying to say, oh, what are going to be the hot trends of 2021, I think what Ryan and I are going to try to do this year is keep as many of our topics as evergreen as possible. And rather than chasing trends, which I don't think really people should do with websites, I think we're going to try to drill down to the fundamentals, and that'll be much more helpful for the listeners to start reimagining their own website and maybe cutting out the fat and doing things a little more effectively. So one of the things that Ryan and I were talking about here a couple minutes ago before we started recording is that you have been getting some specific support requests and questions here in the last couple of weeks, and I was hoping you could share that with us, Ryan.
Absolutely, Sean, and Happy New Year to you and to our listeners. It's great to be back, well rested after a little holiday break. But yes, on the subject of requests that are coming in from our clients, we are seeing some more requests and questions about form spam. So just to tell our listeners a little bit more about what that is on many of our websites that we manage, we have contact forms. And I'm sure our listeners have probably seen a contact form out there in the wild on the internet. Basically, if you go to a contact page or an area of a website that asks you to fill out a few different boxes, right? Typically, they're your first name, your email, your phone number, what you're interested in, little submit button. That's a contact form. And we really recommend for the average small business to utilize a contact form on your website. You'd be surprised at how many leads and opportunities are generated outside of office hours by having that contact form there. So if you don't have one of these on your website right now, get in touch with us today. We can implement that really easily. There's no added cost or anything to add that. But what we're hearing from some of our clients is they're receiving different types of form spam. So the thing to understand about these contact forms is you are opening up the door a little bit. You're creaking open the door a little bit, allowing yourself to be sent form spam by just having that function on your website. Now, it's not a bad thing, because if you can get 5 leads a month and you have to sift through 5 spam messages a month to get those 5 leads, no big deal. But the thing to understand is no matter how much you tighten the bolts on your contact form and put these anti-spam measures in place with the I am not a robot check boxes and all that jazz that we've all seen, no matter how much you put into that, these spammers are always going to find a way around it. And you're going to get form spam no matter what. We've been dealing with contact forms for years now, and no matter what we try, and we might think we have it all wrapped up, within a couple of months, these spammers will find a way around the anti-spam measures and be able to get some spam messages into your inbox again. So the advice that I'd like to share with our listeners is, when it comes to form spam, if you're getting a couple of form messages a month, that's just kind of a part of doing business. You're going to have to deal with those form messages. And to add to that, if it's a spam submission that's coming through the contact form on your website, you do want to treat that differently than a spam email that just comes straight into your email inbox. For this reason, if you mark a message that comes from your website form as spam, you're actually telling your email system to think about all those contact form submissions as spam. So if you mark it as spam, the next legitimate email that comes in may incorrectly get flagged as spam.
Yeah, just to jump in there and clarify, guys,
Of course.
if you can't picture it, you're not getting an email from a client when they're filling in your form. The form itself is acting like a person who's emailing you. So when you get a contact lead from your website, it's your website emailing you, right? So you're going to see in the subject line, in the from line, that it'll probably say your website name, or it might say your host's name, things like that. And
Mhm.
we've had a lot of people freak out in the past, like, what's this thing emailing me? Why can't I get a direct email from the people? And folks will try to click reply to that email. Well, you can't reply to that email. You're not replying to anything. It's just your website. You're collecting information. So that's what Ryan's saying when he's saying, you can't mark that email as spam, because it's your own website form that's emailing you. You don't obviously want to mark that as spam. It's just the junk message that you're getting. You simply have to delete it.
Exactly. You have to delete it, or if you're using a different email platform, archive it, forget about it. And it's very easy to see what is spam and what isn't, because they're talking about, selling you Bitcoin or Viagra, or a recent one that a client just sent in the other week was one that saying that your domain name will be terminated within 24 hours if you don't pay your domain name bill. I've never seen a threatening email like that regarding domain names. And usually when you get these high pressure, like you got to take action now type emails, that's the biggest red flag there is out there, that something's awry, something's not right with this. And it's almost 99.999% of the time it's spam, it's junk, it's people trying to get an emotional reaction out of you so that you take action and spend your money incorrect, frivolously and incorrectly with
Yeah,
these.
no actual emergency organization is going to contact you through the contact form on your website.
That's right.
So, right, it's either a business inquiry, or an inquiry from a customer that you recognize, or ignore. It's actually that simple. It's sort of a binary decision. And I wanted to jump in there too, Ryan, and say I can commiserate with a lot of our listeners and a lot of our clients, because um, you painted a very rosy picture with your 5 leads and 5 spam messages.
Yep.
Because for most small businesses, including my own, side business website,
Yep.
it's more like 1 lead to 20 spam messages.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
right, and people have they get indignant because they have a ratio in their head. So
Right.
I've heard this before from customers, right? They're like, well, if I was getting 100 leads a month, five spam messages wouldn't matter. But the 5 spam messages actually make them enraged, because it's more than the leads they're getting. And then they think, well, if I got 5 spam messages, I should get at least 5 leads. And it obviously, they're not tied together, guys. It doesn't work like that. It's way easier for spammers to send you messages, obviously, because they do it in bulk. So there's no ratio. I understand it's frustrating, but yeah, it's just, you got to kind of get over that. If you have a form, if you're taking advantage of the things that Ryan was talking about earlier in the podcast, then the trade-off is that you're going to 100% for sure get spam.
100. I completely agree, Sean. Completely agree, and you're right. I painted a bit of a rosy picture with five spam and 5 leads. That's an ideal situation, and in some cases, it's the numbers that you said. 1 lead to 20 spam messages, and I completely respect and understand how frustrating that can be, and how that can be like, let's turn this thing off altogether. But generally speaking, and this isn't across the board for every business, but generally speaking, because for those of you that are new to hearing my voice, I've been at this for 17 years, and with every client that we've added a contact form to their website, they typically yield positive results from that form. When you look at the big picture, when you look at the course of a 12-month period, how many leads did they generate from that form? How many of those leads converted into sales? And then especially if you consider that potentially they may not have got the sale if they didn't have that form there. Now, again, that's objective. They may have phoned you if they didn't fill out the form, or emailed you. But here's the raw data saying they filled out the form on such a date, and then when the close date was. And generally speaking, it's been an overall positive element to add this contact form feature to your website. And you just have to deal with spam. So if you hate spam to the point where every time you get that message, then maybe a contact form isn't right for you. And I would prep you for that. But if you're okay to say, if I get a couple spam messages here and there and hit delete, I definitely recommend adding that function to your website.
Yep. And there's an old saying in marketing too, that delay is the death of a sale. So if you did have a phone number and you had a contact form, and even if someone was willing to call you, let's say all your staff are busy, or you're a solo proprietor of your business, and you also work in the business, and so you have your cell phone in your pocket and you can't answer it because you're with a client. So now they have to leave a message. It's funny how people have different expectations when they phone you. If they don't get an immediate answer, they sort of get frustrated.
Hmm.
Whereas if they can fill out something, they feel like it's 50% done.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, again, I'm not saying it's logical, because it's the same thing as leaving a phone message, but you know, it, like Ryan said, it captures that lead too. A lot of
Yep.
times when, we kind of came up in this business, both of us doing 50 to 100 calls a day. And a lot of our work relied on talking to people on the phone, and leaving the messages and understanding what people were saying. And I can tell you, just from a point of view of taking down someone's name to have them as a client, it's so hard to hear sometimes on the phone. Sometimes it gets garbled. Sometimes the information's not coming through. At least when someone fills out a form, you have it in black and white in front of you.
Really good point too. Yep.
So, of course, like you said, Ryan, there's some people don't like spam, and also some people want to have as many options as possible to capture users when they land on their website, or to move them further on down the funnel.
Hmm.
And you made a very good point about office hours versus not office hours. Forum is especially great when you're not during office hours. However, when you are during office hours, one of the alternatives people often ask us about is putting a chat box on their website. And so that's like the little, for people again who don't really know exactly what I mean by that. It's a little box that pops up when you're on a site and says, "Hey, how can I help you? Do you have a support question? Do you want to ask this? Do you have a technical problem? Blah blah blah." You'll see it a
Hmm.
lot on like bigger corporate sites. Obviously, right? They want to avoid you calling in and jamming up the phone lines, so they have their little tech support team there ready to answer
Hmm.
questions. But we have actually got some requests lately for a chat box. And is that something that you've talked to anybody about, say, in the last 3 to 4 months?
For sure. Yeah, it's something that comes up time here and there. It's not a very common request that we hear about every week, but definitely probably once a month we're talking with customers about live chat and how it works. Is there added cost to do it, etc. And I find we're hearing more and more questions about it because it is becoming more of a common um, feature used, like you said, by some of the bigger players out there. If you look at any of the like telecom providers, right, like Rogers, Bell, Shaw, most of these guys have that live chat down because, like you said, it's a lot cheaper for them to have you chatting on the box than tying up the phone line.
Yep, and sometimes it's just very simple answers too. And so we are going to walk you through one very awesome, totally free, and extremely quick and easy to implement method to put a chat box on your site. I just want to put this caveat out there. Do not think of this like a bell and a whistle that you have to have. It actually is not suitable for most small businesses. And I'll get into some of the reasons why in a second. But basically, I think if you are, if you kind of meet these qualities, and one of the qualities would be that you have a lot of website visitors. So we're not talking like 5 visitors per day. You have a ton of website visitors. And it's probably also very helpful if your website is addressing both customers and prospects. So, for instance, to give you an example, in the websites.ca world, a lot of people using our website are customers looking for answers,
Mhm.
right? And that's a totally different type of question than customers looking, prospects looking for, sales information to maybe get a new website. So a chat box can be very helpful in that case. Um, it's also, like I just mentioned, it lends itself to the kind of service or industry where your sales process is fast. It's not a long, drawn out sales process, and where there's a lot of oversight and quick little questions because people don't read, people don't listen, people don't remember sometimes, like, how do I get into something, password, whatever, right? You sent me the doohickey. How do I turn the doohickey on? They don't want to go read the instruction manual. They don't want to watch the video, whatever it is. These questions you get all the time. If you can have somebody manning a chat on his computer there, his or her computer, then that will zap through those quick questions, and people will be very happy. And you by extension will be happy because it'll save you a ton of time. And that brings me to the final caveat, is that it requires a worker to sit by the chat. There's no point having a chat box if no one's going to man it. Then the chat box is just a crappy form. So you can just default to a form, right? You don't need a
Yep.
chat box if no one's going to man it, or they're only going to man it for 1 hour a day. Not useful in any way. So, okay, with that out of the way, let's say you kind of meet all those requirements and you would like a chat box on your site. There is a solution through Facebook Messenger. So hopefully most of our listeners are familiar with Facebook and its messaging program called Messenger. It's just a simple thing. You can go, if you have a business page, you can go and you can enable the chat function for your website. You can go and plop a piece of code on your website, or if you're a websites.ca customer, you can email us to put the code part in for you. And that's pretty much it. You'll now have a floating chat box on your website. So yeah, I don't know if Brian, if you have any questions about implementation or anything like that, or things that come up with clients.
Well, and just so I have a better understanding too, Sean, once that code is added to the website, this little chat box will now kind of, as you said, hover over in the bottom right corner, typically of the website. That allows people to chat directly with you, and that's just going to route those chat messages through your Facebook Messenger as it exists currently. So you would just go to your Facebook account, load up Messenger, and that's where those messages would be routed through. Is that right?
Exactly. Yep. So
Yeah.
if you have a Facebook business page, you can get inquiries through your Facebook business page. So you could just have a window open on your Facebook page, and you're going to see little chat notifications as you get them pop up, and you chat with them just like you would with friends using Messenger all the time. So it kind of requires that you have a staff member who's passingly familiar with the Facebook chat. It's not difficult to use, but if it's a new thing, you might have to take a day or two to get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's free, it's robust. Most of the internet is used to using it, so that's kind of cool. They're not using a chat service they've never touched before. Like, it kind of looks and functions the same as the Facebook Messenger, which is awesome. And another thing I wanted to point out, it's a bit neutral. I can't really say if it's good or bad, but non-Facebook users can also use the chat. So they don't have to be logged into Facebook on their end. They'll see the chat on your website. They'll pull it up and it'll say, do you want to log into your account or chat as a guest? And maybe not those exact words, but that's roughly how it works. Now, here's the thing to be aware of. Just like what we were talking about, how it has to be manned. And this is, it's kind of a thing you look at during business hours. Well, if somebody comes during off hours, or if no one's paying attention to the chat and they log in as a guest and they write you a message, the message will always be there. But after a certain period of time, I believe it's 24 hours or 48 hours, it archives itself. So you can always go back and check that message. The problem is if someone's not on Facebook, they're going to be logging into an account that has an anonymous username. So unless they choose to give you their contact details, or unless you are there priming them to give you their contact details, right? Then all you'll get is, anonymous user 44567 said, hello, what are your hours? So you can't follow up on that. It's not a lead, right?
Really good perspective. I actually had that question. The first question that I had, but you already answered, Sean, is if you're not a Facebook user, can you use the chat? And that you answered that. Yes, you just click guest. Cool. That makes sense. But you bring up a really good point. If it's a guest user after hours and they don't actually leave their contact information, they might type a message in and then there's no way for you to reply to that, right? Because they've essentially signed into a temporary account that you can't reply to if they're not on the other end of the line.
Yeah,
they've hung up the line once they've left, and so that's a downside to it, I suppose.
Yeah, well then of course, so like we said, if you're not manning a chat, it just becomes a crappy form. And if you're not manning a form that doesn't even have fields in it, that doesn't ask people to put in information, then you're not even getting useful information that way. So a form would be better in that case. The other thing I was going to say though is, and this is getting a little bit beyond the scope of this talk, but you can program a bot on Facebook Messenger for your business.
Yes.
Right. So you can have it actually say to people, hello, what would you like to know? And then they'll respond, whatever they respond. If you're not there, you can then have the bot automatically say something like, look, it's outside of our hours. Could you please leave your name and email? We'll get back to you. But that's a little more advanced, right? That's not quite as simple as just setting up the chat box.
You're reading my mind, Sean, because I knew that Facebook Messenger had a function like that. And I was just going to say, if you run into that issue of you not being able, you're obviously not going to be able to man the thing 24 hours a day. You got to sleep. Got to eat, got to shut off once in a while. But yeah, I am familiar with that you can program your Facebook Messenger to have like automated responses, I think is what they call them, or bot features or something, where it'll ask them questions even when you're not around.
Correct. Yeah. And
Yep.
again, I mean, I think a lot of people that ask about this stuff, like it sounds really fun and fancy and cool. And oh, wow, I could use this to automate my business. I mean, one has to be realistic here. And again, I'm including us in this as well. I'm not,
Mhm.
I'm not trying to dump on any of our listeners. Most businesses just don't need that. It's really not
Yep.
necessary. It's really overkill. And so it seems like it's fun and cool and it's going to help all this stuff, but you got to look at your traffic and who your customers are too, right? If you're maybe they're older and they're not comfortable with that kind of thing,
Mhm.
or even the Facebook demographic is bleeding off a lot of younger people now. So if your customers are really a lot younger, they just might think it's kind of goofy that there's a Facebook chat bot that they're talking to instead of a human. So read the room, read your audience, but it's an option that's out there and it's free and it's an alternative to a form. But I think I'd ask your opinion, Ryan. But I would say if you're a busy website and you're a business that could make use of these things, I'd probably have them all. I have a phone number, I'd have a form, I'd have a chat box. They all kind of cover different bases. What's your opinion on that?
Really glad that you asked that, Sean, because this is a topic I often discuss with our customers, and that's making your net as wide as you can possibly make it. Using the fisherman analogy here, you're out searching for sales, you're out searching for fish, you got a net. Why have a tiny net that's only going to fit a certain amount of fish inside when your net couldn't be large? So just using uh, that example, I often recommend to our customer base, give your visitors on your website every available opportunity to contact you. Give them your phone number. Give them your email address. If you're a texting person, you could even say you can send me a text here. Give them the contact form. Give them the Facebook chat option. So in that sense, I completely agree, because one thing that I have noticed in my experience in this business is there are different personalities out there, different personality types, different comfort levels with technology.
Yeah,
And
one
there
likes
are
the phone, one likes the text, one likes the
That's it.
email, and they won't do the other ones.
And they won't. That's the key, is they probably won't do the other ones. And I've used this example before, that there are some people out there that just want to talk. They will call you, they will leave you a voicemail, they will never send you a text, they will never send you an email. They are just phone, that's it, and that's fine. But you know what, there's actually a new growing segment of people that are the exact opposite, that are avoiding phoning like the plague, and they'd prefer to write an email or fill out a form or send a text message to communicate that way. And this is something that I've seen is just growing year after year. People just being less prone to call and more prone to type. So my advice to all our clients out there and any listeners: make that net wide, give them as many contact opportunities available, with the only asterisks of, don't put contact methods out there that you're not going to be able to follow up with. So if don't put using the Facebook chat or messenger example here, absolutely do not use that if you're not familiar or comfortable with Facebook,
Yeah,
because
or if you're not going to have the window open in front of you and be monitoring it.
exactly, because what's even worse than having that net super big is having a fish swim in your net and then swim right out because you didn't have the resources or the time uh, to chat with that lead, or to email back in a reasonable time, or to follow up. If you open up the texting window, to text back in a reasonable amount of time. You need to be able to follow up with these people in a reasonable time, and if you don't, then that's very counterintuitive. But generally
Yep.
speaking, yes, all the contact methods, get them out there, because you'd be surprised at how people like to communicate differently in today's day and age.
100%. And I think you'd agree too, is that you really just have to be realistic about the way your business operates and what you're comfortable and happy doing too. So I agree in general with the widest net possible theory, as many channels, as many options as possible. But if you are just the type of person who absolutely hates to do certain things, whether it's answer the phone or you never check your emails and you're bad at it and it frustrates you, or you're, like I said before, you're an owner operator who's on your own and you just operate from your cell phone. You don't have a laptop you like to haul around, right? You just have to be realistic about these things. And sometimes putting up hurdles and telling people they have to communicate with you a certain way. Again, if you're a certain business, if you frame it a certain way, if your sort of mentality is on point, you can make that work for you too. But that's a special option, I would say, right? So even in that option, like let's say whatever, you've got a guy who's a plumber, he doesn't want to be on a laptop, he doesn't like it, he's out there on the tools as well in people's homes. We still have a cell phone, so if you have your website chat window can be hooked up to Messenger. Well, that, you can have Facebook on your phone. That'll send you notifications when you get a message. You can have email on your phone. Your forum will send you notifications. You can have obviously your phone, so you can answer phone calls. But again, just like you said, Ryan, if you're gonna just let them all, one go to voicemail and one sit in the inbox, and then you get home at the end of the day and you're tired, then you just end up checking them on Friday. All you're going to be doing is actually pissing people off and ruining your reputation without ever getting a chance to do business with them. So in that case, I think it's better to tell people straight up on your website. Yeah. Or just be honest with people and say, look, this ain't an emergency service. You got to book ahead a month ahead of time. Here's my form. That's the only way to contact me. You got to fill out this form and you write it on the form to bring the conversation back full circle. Don't make promises to people like you'll see, we'll get back to you in a business day or less or something. You'll see that on the forums. Like, don't write that if you can't do it. And if your cycle realistically is going to take 3, 4, 5 days, figure out a positive way to spin that, right? So don't just say, I'm disorganized and I'm not going to get back to you in 5 days on your form. But you could say, literally, I'm the most sought after plumber in Etobicoke, and you're going to have to book me ahead of time, but it's going to be well worth your wait. So fill in this form, and me or my staff will get back to you in 3 to 4 business days. Like, just, put a positive spin on it. And then that's also part of effective communication too, is letting people know the cycle, how the process is going to work.
Exactly. And I think kind of summing up some of these points that Sean and I are both making is that we both have general advice for the average small business person out there, but that general advice doesn't always apply, because we know from doing this for a long time that every business is unique. Every business owner is unique, and their areas are different. Their areas of expertise, their comfort level with technology and how they use it is all different. So even though we provide these, monthly podcasts that talk about all these different, options and cool things you should consider, we do get that it's not a one size fits all solution with really anything relating to a website. Everything needs to be, massaged to fit with each individual business. So.
That was great, Ryan. As always, I appreciate your time and I appreciate the listeners as well. If you're not satisfied with your current website or the service you get from your provider, you can switch to websites.ca for free and get a great support team behind you. Just visit business.websites.ca. That's BUSINESS.websites.ca, or email Ryan directly at RYAN@websites.ca.
Thanks for listening, guys. Catch you next time.